session right after lunch is going to be interesting for the audience or for the panel sitting over here, seeing the audience probably dozing. That only time will tell. um, Thank you for being here. Thank you, my co-panel members. Um, it will be helpful if probably each one of you all spend a couple of minutes explaining what are the key trends that you are seeing in AI, whether it is more on the corporate side, more on the institution side, or whether it is back end, front end, whether it is B2B or B2C, how the trends are shaping across for your businesses. You want to start probably, Sabina?
Yeah, thank you, Atul. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zamina, and I think the short answer to your question, Atul, which is a good one to start, is I'm seeing the impact of AI everywhere, right? And I think the title of the panel is very, very apropos. Let me start off, if I may, just sharing the mission statement for Turnitin. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with our business, but Turnitin's mission is to ensure the integrity of global education and academic research. And what that means is we have the opportunity to work with academic communities, academic institutions globally, and we work with academic leaders, instructors, and students to better understand what they need. So from my perspective, and the reason why I say it impacts all of those areas you brought up, is I'm seeing several touch points. One is AI is asking us or allowing us to create a stronger relationship between instructor and student. It's asking us and it's allowing us to rebuild that relationship between policy and practice, or maybe expectations and reality of how AI is used. From a student skill perspective, we're seeing AI forcing us to think of new skills and develop new ways of working. And core to Turnitin's business is academic integrity. AI is allowing us to build more transparency with how those tools are used in the original thinking, with writing. So again, I think with all of those, when I reflect on not just what we're seeing in education, but also what's required in the workplace, AI literacy will be a requirement when students get there.
Thank you.
And sorry, Adil, one of the things, if I may, we recently did a survey, a global survey with 3,500 users, same leaders, instructors, students. One of the core countries we researched was India, and 93% were positive on the impact of AI in education.
Wow. That's sizable enough, 93%.
Yeah, the highest we've seen across in any country.
Okay, thank you. Arshan?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arshan Vakil. I lead AI initiatives and mobile strategy for Open English. I had an English learning startup in India called Enguru. We focused on providing conversational English via a live tutoring platform, which was acquired by Open English, which is a company that does a similar offering, but at the other end of the world, across the Spanish-speaking South America and Brazil. So now it's sort of globally an English language platform that teaches conversational English. In terms of so just to give you guys a little bit of context, in terms of the question about whether AI is impacting, what are the trends we're seeing, whether it's impacting B2C or B2B more, and learners or more operational, I think it's company specific. I think overall AI is impacting across the board and can be applied for learner specific changes and new features, and can also be applied for operational efficiency. At Open English, we're doing a mix of those. Our core focus is first to use AI to improve learning outcomes and learner engagement, improve the platform for users. But there are also some projects that work on efficiency and improving that as well. But between the two, I would definitely put the learner personalization and using AI for that at a slightly higher priority. But the capability of AI is applicable across both. So that's what's really great about AI. It can really be applied anywhere in pretty much any business. but specifically for EdTech and specifically for us at language learning, it really allows for personalization and the ability to practice speaking and build a lot of features that are specific to each user, and that's what we are using AI for the most initially. And again, the B2C, B2B question is interesting because we all have both offerings. We have a large B2C business, but we also sell to enterprises for their employees to learn English. And again, the approach we take here is the B2C, you're allowed to be more agile, you're able to launch features faster, get feedback faster, while B2B is a little later, but I think eventually it will impact both equally, but it may be in that order. Yeah.
Thank you, Harshad.
Hi everyone, my name is Nag Chandrasekhar. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Degreed. Degreed's a corporate learning company headquartered in Salt Lake City. And we are very privileged to have GSV Ventures and Deborah Quazza as part of our board. And our mission is jailbreak the degree. We can talk about it later, but the goal is we don't care where we acquire skills from. We shouldn't worry about how we acquire them. Just the fact that you don't need a degree to get a job. You can accumulate credentials over the course of your career, which in turn translates to a degree. That's the mission, and our founder very much believes in it, and that's our North Star. But in reality, to get there, we also need to make money. So we are into corporate learning, and what we try to do is we put learner at the front of most of the experience. We're not a learning management solution. We are a learner experience platform, and we care deeply about upskilling of employees. So for us, AI is all about changing the way learners engage with the platform. Nobody in corporate learning wants to learn something because you just have time. You don't have time. So you need to get into a system that engages you and you can learn in the way you want. What AI does a really good job is, you don't have to codify your learning styles. You don't have to say this has to be learned in a certain way and a certain order. You can make it personal, not only in the way it delivers, but also in the way it personalizes for you. I think as Arshan mentioned, personalization is important because the more personalized it is, the more engaging the platform is. Right. We only get a few minutes of the day to engage learners, and if you don't find the right content, you're not going to be there for long. So that's on the learner side. On the curators and administrators, we have a large amount of content that we aggregate. We'll need to make sure there is efficiencies. Content gets stale very fast, so you need a way to update it, kind of adjust it as needed, and also kind of like make sure that there's targeting that happens to the right group of people. So we think it's going to have a big impact. I think it's going to make learning more interesting and actually enjoyable as time goes by.
Thank you, Naga. You, in your entire context, you mentioned a very important point that you need to make money also out of it. And to that point, Semina, to you and Naga, there is always, when new technologies come, there is a huge chaos. You will have your clients asking a lot of tools, and your, back end, the product team will look at other direction. As investors, fraternity, where I communicate, it's simpler for them because what they will do is they will spread their eggs into multiple baskets and do it. But is that really possible for a corporate to do it for technology? I doubt. How do you guys make decision on what to take first and how to look at it? Naga, you want to go first?
If I say that we knew the answer, I would be lying. It's a bit of a wild west out there, right? So there's all kinds of trends that are happening. At a basic level, because we are also a software development company, we want to make sure that people understand the potential of using the software. So we wanted to make sure that the knowledge of how you build software in the new age permeates to the whole company. So we wanted to make sure we create a foundation or a platform that every teams, we have multiple teams, right? So what most people do is they create a small innovation team and then they make all the progress in a large company. That'll work for a short period of time. But if you really want to transform, you got to make sure this knowledge reaches the edges of the network. So once we created a foundation, we made sure all the teams started using it. that, everything from GitHub Copilot to there are lots of tools out there, there are IDEs. So that basically made sure people understood that it can help and augment, right? There's always a fear of replacement. We won't get into it now, but at least in terms of helping, they're trying to understand what there is. So that's number one. Second, when it comes to customers, there is a lot of fear. What's interesting is there is a mix of fear and trepidation, but also excitement on how to do that. So how do you overcome that? So what we decided was we created a new model to go to what we call as prototypes, experiments, which in turn we put it in the hands of a lot of customers so they can kick the tires, they understand what it can do, and we deliberately picked use cases that could help them. So for example, we introduced some voice coaches, for example, and then you get a chance to play with it, tweak it, understand it, and then once you get a chance to play with it, they'll come back and say, we could use it here, here, and here. So essentially the use cases came from them. And so later on, when the time comes to productionize it, you have a steady pipeline of ideas that you can jump in and add. So that's one way which you can manage. It helps with a little bit of a change too, but it also helps organizations get ready to understand how are we handling the data, how are we handling the privacy. So it takes time. And then finally, from a company point of view, there are a lot of challenges in terms of how you monetize it. So that's why this model of prototypes to experiments helps us, because we understand the usage, and then we can figure out whether it's a usage-based or whether it is use case-based, and those are all work in progress. So stay tuned, because I don't think we know the answers yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of what you said makes sense. I'll give it the perspective of as a language learning product, right? I think that for us, whenever we look at this, the first thing we see is that what are we trying to achieve by building a new feature? And that is, regardless of the technology available, we first try and define that. Is it that we want people to spend more time on the platform? Is it that we want them to improve a specific skill like pronunciation? Is it like retention, that they should come back 3-4 times a week because we know that leads to higher learning outcomes, etc. So we define that separately from the technology we're going to use. And of course, in parallel, the idea is to keep an eye on what AI technologies will be applicable to solve those problems. So defining what outcomes or what sort of specific problem we want to solve is an important step, and then seeing what AI technology can be applied there. And I'll give one example. For instance, ours is a live tutoring platform where you actually have a teacher and you go through a class. But a lot of our students, a big chunk of our students, don't use that feature, which is the main feature of the product, because they are apprehensive to join a class. They're like, we don't know enough English, and we feel a little embarrassed to be in a classroom with 6-7 other students who speak better English than us. So can we use AI to solve that? And then we said, yes, we could potentially. We build a sort of a role play conversation where you can speak to an AI bot first, build a little bit of confidence, and you can do that at any time. The other advantages, like you can do it anytime, you can do it for a couple of minutes as opposed to a class which is 40 minutes long. But the idea being that it gives you that confidence to then go to the next step, which is joining the live class. So that was one of the first AI features we built, right? The idea of we built this AI tutor and we branded it, and you had these different scenarios where you could speak to it, and it would be a natural conversation. And that's one of the beauties, of course, of GenAI, is that it's completely natural conversation based. But the way we looked at it was define the problem, what are we trying to solve for, then build the solution, and then track that closely. So whenever we launch anything new, we'll do it as a staged rollout with an A/B test. We're comparing someone who doesn't get it versus someone who gets it, which is of course now very common across most technology products, to see if the impact was significant or not, right? So I think that's one way we approach it. We don't directly look at, is that feature increasing our revenue directly? No, that would not be the way we approach it. So as opposed to AI features directly leading to monetization, I think we try and do it a little bit more granular to look at specific outcomes for specific features.
I think that was very helpful, that not every feature will turn into monetization, and you are open to investing in that. Samina, probably you would want to give your comments.
Yes, please. My two perspectives are: stay close to your user community. That, the input that they have, the connection that you have with them, that's critical for you to seek their feedback. My two colleagues that are seated in the second row here, were just at a customer meeting and came back with a long list of feature requests from the customers. right? So however you interact with your customers, whether it's in person, online, seek their input, be transparent of what you can and can't do. And the other advice is you have to be ruthless in how you prioritize. And I use that word because you will disappoint customers when you don't build the feature that they want. But look at the ones that add value into the workflows of all of your customers. And that is going to be critical as well as you look to scale.
Moving from probably your ROI to the customer's ROI, how do you, Zamina, ensure that the customer gets the value for their buck? If you could throw, probably a case study or two on that, and even Arshan, on your B2B side, if you could mention a couple of points over there.
I mean, ROI is important for all of us as we look to run businesses, but for Turnitin, I mean, our ultimate success is the value we can give back to the educational community. So it is, we stay close to the user community, we seek their input, we seek their advice, but we also learn from them on their strategy as well. I mean, as we look to AI, there are so many different touch points of not only how we can look to improve our own business and how we serve our customers. That's near and dear to my heart because one of the areas that two of the areas that I oversee are our customer onboarding and our customer support. Right? And there are so many ways to incorporate AI into our work that improves that engagement with our customers. But then continuing to add value into the work that they do is important.
Thank you. Arshan?
Yeah, so I think we view sort of ROI for ourselves is completely aligned with ROI for the consumer, both on the B2C and B2B front. If the consumer is learning English and their ROI, they invested to learn English, if that's happening, it's great for us. So those are completely aligned. We want to make sure that everything we build is to improve their return on investment as well. Right? We're not looking to build a platform that they're paying for it, but they're not using it as much, so our costs are lower, and that's not the goal. Right? The goal is to make sure that they are learning English, because in the long run, that's what works. Right? Then you'll get more referrals, you'll grow more, and the whole idea of building a very strong product. So whenever we build new features, and specifically AI features, we do look at, like I said, defining the problem, making sure that's solving it. And it could be, most of them are around learning. There's some ancillary ones that may not be around learning. For example, if a user has a problem today on the platform, they use WhatsApp to chat to an agent. We built a layer where we know the common problems people can potentially complain about, like I want to change my email address and I want to change my level because I'm finding it too difficult or too easy. We've used AI to understand your problem and not like a typical chatbot where you have to sort of press A, B, C. Like the idea is to use natural language to understand the problem and make it easier for a user to reach out to us. Right? So there's a layer of AI on top of it, and only if the AI doesn't understand it does it go to a support agent. And stuff like that is sort of examples of beyond just the learning. We're also trying to use AI to improve the experience across the board. And it works both ways because it drives efficiencies for us, it reduces our cost on that angle. So, but the goal being that ensuring that it also helps the user. And I think that's our approach to making sure any project we launch, right? That's
Thank you. Naga, I would like you to, help us know. AI is definitely increasing our knowledge levels, but it is also, is it helping us increase our critical thinking and, probably higher order skill sets? And how do we ensure that? Because, that's a typical question which comes across. And especially amongst the parents community for, when students use it, that whether this tool is going to make my child more dumber or, intelligent. I know you have a lot more on the corporate learning side, but that's also a question which the corporates try to look at it, right, for their employees. Or probably, let me put it this way, why don't you start and then Arshan can also add up to it.
I'll say it slightly differently because by the time we deal with corporate learners, so you're expected to know, so you're past the first principles stage, right? So, but I mean, it'll definitely transform. So the way we look at it is that the primary use case for a lot of us is basically better performance support. right? So in the moment, I'm trying to do something. Does it have enough context for me to help do my next set of actions well, right? So it is definitely a bit of a concern that if you don't understand the first principles, then if it tells you what to do next, will I be able to actually understand and truly solve the problem? So providing context is very important. And so a lot of the use cases that our customers try for are actually simulations, right? Like role plays to basically understand what our products can do, or in case of our customers, what their products will do. And then that will help them to kind of train for the next set of activities. So it's a challenging problem. We don't know the answers yet, but what we do know is right now people are valuing the ability to get ready for the moment versus actually trying to learn something at a more basic level. So maybe a question better for our team to answer.
Sure. So in terms of the question of whether access to these AI tools is actually making learners quote unquote dumber, I think the short answer is no, not at all, right? I think that it's providing you access to information in a much more structured manner than you did earlier. You can answer pretty much any question through a simple prompt, which is extremely efficient. I'll give a specific example from Open English, and then also just as a general consumer of AI. But a specific example from language learning is we have a lot of asynchronous activities, right? So you have to do different lessons before and after your classes. And if you are struggling with a question or you have a doubt, we had a feature called Ask a Teacher. And you could ask a teacher and you would get a response within 24 hours. We changed that to Ask Jenny, which is the name of our AI bot. And you get a response instantaneously. And what it led to is it led to 8x usage of the number of users using it. And more interestingly, it led to about 32x number of questions, because then when you were getting a response immediately, you were having a back and forth and you could ask a follow-up question, while if you ask a question now and you got the teacher's response a few hours later, you don't end up asking the follow-up question. So it led to more people adopting it, and it led to people then being able to clarify their doubts more. And it was because you had immediate access to your doubt, right, which you didn't have earlier. And that was an example of where it definitely didn't make the students dumber that they had access to someone, but it allowed them to clear their doubts. Now, were there some people who would ask a doubt saying, give me the answer? Yes, but the idea being that this is a practice activity. So they need to do that, and they're doing that once, and then we know they're doing that, and we ask them that question later on, we store that history. It's fine, right? It's the idea of learning through actually doing and practicing. But so that's why I think it's actually overall, it leads to faster access to information and better structured access to information, which actually used in the correct way can really help learners.
Thank you. Samina, do you want to add something on this?
I would love to. So my background, my first job was as a teacher. I used to be a math teacher many, many years ago. So as I reflect on the comments from Nag and from Arshan, I reflect on how students learn. And it's very complex, it's very nuanced, right? Because there's so many factors, not just their technical skills, their cognitive skills, the emotional factors, environmental factors, right? So when new technology is available, students are looking for us to help give them guidelines. And at the end of the day, it's the educators that will help the students through their learning journey. So when I reflect on how AI is being used in the classroom, we need to do more to give guidelines, to help set policies of what is acceptable use of AI. And it's true, could be in parallel of any technology that's introduced, right? If it could be based on the assessment. There are instructors that say, you can use AI, no problem, use it all you want. There are instructors that say, just use AI for brainstorming, you can use a generative AI tool, use it for your outline, but then I expect you to write your own paper. Or the other extreme of don't use it at all, right? But I think that we still have a long way to go to understand what is the right use cases of these technologies and what is the right policy. And I think through experimentation in those types of scenarios, we'll be able to set what are some of the more applicable policies so that it's not just a one-size-fits-all for a learner, that it's applicable to the individual as well.
Right. This is very helpful. In fact, it reminds me of my conversation some time ago with HCL Group's co-founder Ajay Chaudhary, where he had mentioned in the early 80s and 90s he used to sell calculators, and he used to sell it as a solution to the accountants who used to always fear that probably the calculator will take away their job. And today, in the hindsight, when we look at it, it is a tool to enable them to do things faster. So probably, 10 years down the line, that's what people will start also looking about AI, while the fears are right now, they're all over the place. Just to add on to this, as a part of, fear, there is always a question on the haves and the haves not. Will AI also, probably divide the society into the privileged ones who have the access and to the ones who do not have the access in terms of the intellectual skill sets? And this is, doing rounds all over the place. And that's where, there is a lot more FOMO also, if I may say, in terms of, how to take access to, how to learn to. And there are a lot of courses getting sold across the board to learn AI tools. What would be your 2 cents on this to all 3 panel members?
I can go for it. I would hope that it, as time goes by, it'll become more and more ubiquitous and pervasive. There'll always be tiers of access. I think that's life. There's nothing in there that's not tiered. But I actually believe that with AI, it'll separate out the people who have agency and who don't have agency. Because there's a lot of folks out there who have a lot of ideas and a lot of drive. You now have a lot of control in your hands. And you actually start seeing this already today. We have folks in our marketing team. They're able to do a lot with the tools that are out there because they have agency. They want to do something, they have ideas, and you get the tools to do so. Then there are people who are very content to fit inside a system and just do the same job. Those will be the ones who will suffer. So in some ways, it will start separating out because it's going to give you a lot more tools at your disposal. It's up to you to figure out how to use that. And I think it'll change the way people learn. Also, it'll change the way people get up to speed. And I think jobs of the future will be very fluid. So premium will be placed on your ability to pick up and run with things.
Samita, you want to go?
I interpret your question around the equity of access to these technologies. Correct. And first of all, I think that's a responsibility each of us have in this room, not only just the vendors in the room, but whether you're in government, whether you're in an educational institution, you have to continue to look at that. It requires us to reflect on how do we make sure, it goes back to my previous response as well, of what are acceptable use cases so that students are confident in how they're using it, that they don't feel that I don't feel that Arshan has a leg up on me, that he's at an advantage because he is using ChatGPT and I'm not, right? That there's a clear guidance from my instructor, from my academic institution of how to use this. So that, to me, that's the first equitable step. The second is how these tools are also priced. Right? Many of these solutions are free, but many have higher level tiers that require students to pay for these. Right? So again, I think institutions need to reflect on how can they level the playing field for students across their campus as well.
So I'm going to sort of throw out a slightly extreme view here, but I think that if it has to, of course, be regulated and a lot of things have to be figured out, but the hope is that AI as a technology will make it more equitable because the access should improve dramatically. The cost will come down. There's no doubt about that. That we're already seeing every month. There's a better model reveal. There's, like right now there's news of DeepSeek and there's a lot of questions around it, but there's no doubt that it was at a much lower cost than past models. What the figure is may be debatable, but I think it's good. Cost is going to come down. It has to be regulated well, but access is only going to increase. So the hope is that anyone should be able to access the best content in the world because of AI as a technology, which is not possible today. And if you look at 50 or 100 years before today, it was even harder, right? Getting access to good quality content was even more inequitable. So I think that actually, hopefully, it will make access to language more equitable and will allow us to to provide good quality content across the board, right? So that's the hope.
Thank you. Keeping in mind of the time, probably, I would request all of you all to give your concluding points, 1 minute each. In that, I would request you to add probably your advice to a lot of startups who are over here, who are looking all over the place to provide solutions in AI as to how they should concentrate. Because there is always a chicken and hen situation where you are out to raise money to build solutions, and then you are out to provide to the customers, and customers either already have it or the prices have crashed for that. Daga, you want to start?
Yeah, I think a couple of ways I'll kind of elaborate on this is I think one, there is going to be a generation of systems that will come along. We're still in the first generation. So right now, what everybody's doing is trying to look at existing problems and trying to optimize, using existing processes and problems. I think there will take a few years for it, and there will be plenty of companies who will pick a particular problem or a particular use case, and they will try to, make it better or augment it, right? But then there will be a new set of paradigms that will come after this initial usage, right? A lot of the long-held truths are going to be dispelled. So I don't know how many of you follow Naval Ravikant. He's one of the people that I look up to in kind of in the way you think of the future. And, he recently put out a thing on Twitter. It's basically, AI is going to eat UI, right? Which is very obvious because you're going to have new paradigms to interact and get information. So you're not going to spend a lot of time building, complex systems with complex UIs. They won't need to be codified. They'll be freeform. And even the exchange of information will be more freeform. So I would encourage everybody to kind of look at systemic, simple problems to start with, and then say, how could you do this completely differently versus trying to just make efficiencies in one particular area? Because those won't be enduring. And there will always be you'll become part of a larger suite of things that will come in there. So for startups, it doesn't matter whether it's K-12, EdTech, corporate learning. I think, trying to solve existing processes with AI alone is not, it's a first instinct, but probably it'll take a little longer to get to the right answer.
Thank you, Arshad.
Yeah, so in fact, so just piggybacking off that, and I think that one of the important things is going to be that AI, of course, it has a lot of potential, but how you build it and what the application is going to be crucial. And I think that's what we're seeing, right? I don't think it's going to be a one-size-fits-all. I think how it's applied and applied to different use cases. In our case, for example, language learning, we still offer teacher-driven classes, but the AI is in the classroom. It provides you feedback after the class, which is much more personalized than you were getting earlier. It provides you activities specifically based on what you said in class. So it's sort of built around the classroom. So it's augmenting the classroom, making it a lot better, allowing you to get a more personalized experience. So I think it's really how you're applying it, and that goes back to my initial point about figuring out the problem first, what you want to solve, and then making sure you're using the technology to solve that. I think that's going to be crucial, right? And the technology is going to keep improving and improving at an insanely fast pace, like we've seen. So, which is great for everyone, right? But that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. I think the idea is going to be how it's applied and what use cases you're solving for is going to be important, right? Because consumers eventually care about that end goal, whether it was learning English in our case. Have you made that more efficient? Not how much AI did you use to do that, right? I think that's going to be the crucial aspect.
Right. Samina?
Thank you very much. So from a Turnitin perspective, first of all, we continue to focus on academic integrity and looking at how Gen AI, that we can continue to foster original thinking and writing skills in students, right? These generative AI tools gave everybody, I'll call it a superpower, that we can all create, we can learn, we can write easily with these new tools. Atul, you gave the example of a calculator changing how we work. Gen AI is changing how students work. And we every day are looking to how do we support our students in this process, and how do we make sure that we continue to foster those thinking skills and those writing skills, because those are going to be needed when they join the workforce. For you, from a technology perspective, the work that I look at from a customer experience perspective, the tools are evolving so quickly, right? So I think, even as you're looking at new tools to build, perhaps even combinations of different technologies, I mean, you have an exciting role ahead of you, and I wish you much success.
Thank you. I think it's time. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you all.